All right, welcome back. Today, we're going to be jumping into another limited series of Exited, where we're speaking with exited founders, members of the 7% of us SMBs, 35 million of us who have gone on and ultimately achieved an exit, which means 93% of us have not. Goal of this series is to actually learn lessons from those who have experienced it. Today, we have with us Adam White. Adam, welcome to the pod, Bootstrapping to Billions.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Adam, let's jump into this. This is going to be a boots on ground, live, learned, experience episode. We're trying to pull out the insights, learn, live lessons, stories, the journey, the good, the bad, and hopefully the ugly as well. If we can get comfortable being uncomfortable, that's amazing. But everything starts somewhere. I just wanted to frame the deal, right? So when we talk about deal, we're talking about the exit. Let the audience know pretty fast what it is that you built, what it is that you accomplished, and then we could sink into the details. So SEOJet, you built it in 2017.
Bootstrapped, yep.
Strapped, which, yeah, love that. Didn't ask that pre-show. Bootstrapped SEOJet 2017, exited 2021. It was a low 7-figure exit, which is amazing, remarkable. Celebrate the things that we don't get to see on the cover of the Wall Street Journal or covered in TechCrunch, but realistically is what we should all be, highlighting and celebrating daily, because this is what we're doing for. We're building businesses that hopefully achieve these milestones that support a better life, because that's the goal of our business, right? Build a business that supports our lifestyle. You were able to grow this business to a healthy 6 figures, bootstrapped.
That's right.
Hundreds of customers.
Yeah, yes.
Bootstrapped. And then since then, because it's been a few years, so this is going to be a quick of a flashback episode too. Since then, you've been able to go back, digest, reflect on the experience. Hopefully we get to do a little bit of therapy session today.
Thank
Then
you.
you did a couple of different things after, which we'll get into. But take us back to that moment in time, 2017.
Yeah.
Was this the first business? Was this multiple business in? Where were you at?
No, this was, I started SEO in the SEO space back in literally 2002. So I had many, in fact, this was probably at that point, 15th or 16th internet business I had started. And the vast majority of those I had exited. Just probably because I have ADHD, they were all small exits, but I would just never stick with anything too long because I think, just get bored of doing the same thing. And so I want to try something new. Anyway, so I had sold several businesses and said, because I was big into film, right? And I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so I was like,
Posters in the background.
right. Yeah. And I went to film school for like a few weeks, but I already had kids when I started there. And they're like, you're not going to make any money if you get into film. And I'm like, well, that sounds dumb. I want to make money. So I knew I had a big interest in entrepreneurship. So I went and got a business degree instead. But I always said to myself, I'm going to come back to film at some point. And so I sold my business, I think in 2009, 10. And then I said, I'm going to take the next 2 years and learn how to make
What
movies.
business was that you sold?
This was an SEO agency that I was.
This was an agency business. So you bootstrapped an agency business first.
I did, yeah. And I ranked number one in the US for the term SEO services. So on Google.
That.
So just like I couldn't take any more business. I'm like, I don't want, like, again, I'm kind of bored of it. I'm like, I don't want to grow this anymore. Let's just sell this and do something else.
How profitable was that business?
It was very profitable,
Did you get to the moment of constraint? So how large was the head count? How many customers? Because there's different moments in time.
I never
of
hired anybody.
businesses.
Like I love being a solo founder, right? And so I just took it to where I couldn't take any more clients on myself. Where I was literally just like, I don't want to answer the phone, because I have too much. And I'm like, this is stupid, because the value of this is being wasted because I have people ready to pay me money, but I didn't want to do it anymore. That's when I was like, all right, maybe it's smart to, if I'm not going to take on, bring on people and have employees or whatever, then maybe I should just sell this thing. And that's when I sold it. So
how was your experience through that exit? That was the first? It
was exciting, man. It was super exciting. You know what I mean? I had some smaller ones before that. That was a decent sized one. Getting a big check is always really fun. And then just, the excitement of there's a new stage of life now. I get to do something else. And so I, at that point, said, I'm going I'm going to take 2 years and just do film only. I'm going to pretend I'm a filmmaker.
Amazing.
And I started volunteering on movie sets, making short films, whatever, until I could make a full feature film. And so I did that. The feature released, it was, I had a theatrical run in theaters. 2014 is when it actually released. And then, but I had kind of been out of the SEO game during that time. I
What's
wasn't
the
really
name of
paying
the
attention.
film?
Well, it's called Inspired Guns. It's on Amazon, but
Yeah,
I've since done another
we'll
one
link to
too,
it.
by the way. But again, that's such a side.
No,
It's
but
like
it's super
it's like,
cool because there's a story behind it. Because if I heard you right, you were passionate, purposeful, you wanted, and you were interested in that. But kids is a real thing and they need to eat. And that requires this thing called money, which then required you to go solve that problem, which is to build the agency, which then you then built and sold and exited, which gave you a little bit of a check that provided some freedom to decide. And you
mhm.
decided to go back to your passion and purpose. And then you did it. You literally like grinded it out almost like a bootstrapper, learning for 2 years, and then you put out a feature film, which is to me super cool. So it's a
Yeah.
side quest, yes, but I think that it should also be elevated and celebrated because
Thank
it's a
you.
part of
Let's
the
celebrate it
journey.
more. I love talking about movies. I'll talk about it all day. Yeah, I did another one, kind of that same strategy. It released in 2021. It was a kind of like a family rom com type thing. Anyway, super fun stuff. That Getting back to the point, during that time I wasn't really paying attention to SEO, and so after the movie came out, I was like, all right, well, I got to do something else now. So let's go back to SEO, right? And so I started. I don't even know if you know. I don't know if you know who Marcus Lemonis is.
Yeah, the profit. Yeah. Man, I mean, awesome. Like talk
I wrote an
about,
article about his show back then, saying they literally was titled "Why the Prophet is the Worst Show on TV." And it was like a tongue in cheek because I love the show and he's like super cool guy. And so I just posted that on Facebook and did a $5 ad to his friends or his followers on Facebook. And like within 20 minutes, he had seen the article and reposted it to all of his followers. And then it like shut down my website, like just like it was gone. And all I could see was the headline. And so then all these people on Facebook are just roasting me as like the worst person on earth because I said his show was the worst show on TV. And
they're
so then
like, you don't like people, you don't like process, you don't like profit.
I'm like, no, you guys don't. So I posted on that. I replied, I'm like, hey, I'm the one that wrote the article. I don't know why you guys couldn't see that it was tongue in cheek. I knew they couldn't.
Yeah.
The site was shut down, so I knew they couldn't even read it. But I just thought I would just clarify right there. And then he replied, it's like, hey, he's like, I know that it was tongue in cheek. I love the article. That's why I posted it. And anyway, through that, he used that phrase to create a billboard in LA saying, "Is the Prophet the worst show on TV?" Because it had gone so viral,
Yeah. Get that
that post that
attention.
he did. So he texted me that and he's like, "Hey, check out what we just did." I'm like, "Sweet. By the way, let me do SEO for all these companies you're buying." And so he's like, "All right, let's start with these two." And so literally with just by writing that article, I'm now doing SEO for some of these, if you've seen the show back then, it was back then, it was Sweet Pete's Candy was one of them. And there was another one
Yeah.
of a fashion brand. I was doing
Yeah.
SEO for those.
There's like the lighting company as well that did Sweet Beats lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's talk about a great series too. And talk about a story. Talking about amazing story. Talk about also skills rising to the top.
Anyway, so
That's
I'm back in
cool.
SEO and I'm like, nobody, like, why can't I find anywhere like how to do link building the right way? Like, I know link building is the most important part of SEO and always has been. That this is, back then. And I'm like, why can't I find like, okay, what anchor text should I be using for SEO? How many links should I be getting each page? Like, there was nothing anywhere. And I'm like, well, this is dumb. I'm just going to solve this problem because I've been doing this long enough. I can figure it out. So I literally started looking at number one ranked pages, just looking at all the backlinks any number one ranked page had. I just would search random industries, look at the number one ranked page and check the backlinks, check the anchor text. And it just became this massive like research project. And I was like, dude, I figured it out. Like I started categorizing all of these backlinks and these anchor texts. And I'm like, I know exactly what Google wants in a number one ranked page. And
So
so
you
I
you
built,
identified ultimately where you were going to lean into. So this is again, post exit of the agency, post passion purpose, getting back into it. You caught the vibe with Marcus. You're like, man, I get paid for this big. this is where I'm going to go. Servicing and working in that space, you're like, let me productize the approach. Is that what I'm hearing? It's essentially
Yeah, that's
what's the core
exactly what
problem,
happened.
and then let me productize so I'm not in the
I think
agency
what I
space.
think the pain point was I was scared to build links for his webs those companies because I didn't want to screw it up, right? Because
Yeah.
they already had so much goodwill and natural, juice just from the
So you
show.
really wanted to know that you were doing a great job.
So I'm like, I was paralyzed. I'm like, I wasn't building links for him because I didn't. I
Want
was
to
like,
mess it
I
up.
want to make sure I'm doing the right thing here, and that's when I was like, all right, I got to solve this problem. And
And you
I
went to
guarantee
school to a
you, if
certain
I'm
extent.
having this problem, 1,000 other SEOs are because frankly, there's a lot of SEO agencies that don't even know how to do SEO. You know what I mean? I'm
Mhm.
like, I could help all of them do it the right way, and they would love me for this. So that's kind of when I
This
was
is
like,
important because a function of this series, I want to be able to, again, we're only speaking to the folks that have exited. You're a multiple time exiter, so you're you're definitely you're an elite member of the 7% class. What we want to do is reverse engineer how folks that have gotten to the exit also started and identified it was a real problem to solve. Because sometimes just getting started, it's like, is this the right thing? And then how do you pay attention to continue to invest? You got paid, so somebody paid you. You then were in this situation where I want to do this very, very, very well. You were essentially elevating yourself to a level of excellence. And in order to do that, you went to school, you reverse engineered number one pages, you figured it out, and then you're like, if I'm having this problem, other folks are having this problem. Let me take what I applied and then give it to others. How did you start to sell it to those others?
so there was before I did SEO Jet, another problem that I recognized was like one of the ways for people to get backlinks, and this is in the 2017, 2016 timeframe,
Okay.
was writing guest posts, right? Like that was a
Yeah.
big, that was just
Huge.
becoming
Yeah.
like a very popular thing, guest posts on other sites. And so then I like, you could do like Google searches, like, put in quotes, right for us, and then whatever the category is, right? And you'll find Google will show you results of people that are looking for guest posts. And that became, again, a very time intensive thing, trying to find good quality sites to guest post on where they would actually let you do a guest post. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take the time to create a curated list of sites, blogs that allow guest posts, and I'm just going to sell access to it.
Yeah.
So, so again, it was just like a pain point of I know that people will pay to save 4 hours of time. They'll pay me $50 to get the full list. That's always
Which
up.
is like a moment right now to pause for the audience because it sounds simple and you're saying it fast because you did it and makes sense to you. But for folks listening, it's like you identified a pain, and that pain was like researching and the time investment that it takes to actually be able to do those guest posts. And you're like, let me do it one time. Let me do it very, very well. Let me productize that time and sell it,
Yeah.
negate it. And that made money.
That did. So I literally just would sell for full lifetime access for $47. People could get the full list that's always updated. I had my
And these were people that now clearly are concerned and interested about this.
in backlinks. So now it was almost like and I didn't mean to do this, but it was almost like my Tripwire offer, right? Where it's like,
Mhm.
I've now had people pay $47 for backlink information. I know every one of these people care about backlinks. So now I had
How
this
did you get those people though? Did you use SEO to
just
get those people, or did you do
SEO
paid ads, or
because I was at the time the only guy like with a website that was only about guest posting. You know what I mean?
okay,
Like,
so you literally optimized the search intent around this problem that got everybody that was actively interested to your solution. You converted them for $47. Which, yeah, I mean, makes a ton of sense, but there's a lot of folks listening that are trying to figure this out right now, like quite literally, and you have the blueprint that did it, right? So you figured out a core problem, you figured out a way to solve it. The value was the time saved. That time saved is worth $47 a price. So price to value, equation made sense. You then optimized the site for traffic of folks actively, they were interested and they were aware. So they're already aware of the problem, they're interested in the solution, they find you through what you did. You sold them for $47, and now you have a pool of folks that are actively interested in applying this.
yeah, that's exactly right. So then I just when I kind of had the first version of SEO Jet that I was personally using, I'm like, I'm just going to reach out to these people on the guest posting customers, and I'm just going to see if there's any interest, right? And so
How did you do that? Email, or
yeah,
how
just through
how did you
email,
approach them?
I just sent out an email. It's like, hey, I'm building this thing. I mean, I hyped it up, right? I having done internet marketing for already, let's see, 12, 15 years at that point. I knew how to hype
Yeah,
it up.
2002.
Yeah. Built to do a product launch and all that stuff. It was, I was building the suspense and like, this thing is awesome. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. Reply
Through a
if you,
list? Through a newsletter list, or were these
yeah,
transactional
just,
individuals? Like, did you find 100 that you were like, "Let me just test with 100 and see if I could get that
no,
interest
I think I
validated?"
reached out to everybody that had ever purchased, because I had done some follow up sequence with all those people through the other
Mhm,
sites. So they knew who I was a little bit,
mhm.
although not much because it wasn't recurring revenue. I didn't spend a ton of time nurturing that audience.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, it's a
Yeah,
one-time purchase, and how relevant are you? But
I
if they're
know.
using the product,
Yeah, they are using it, so that helped, and and they would get updates and stuff. But then when I sent that out, I probably did get 100 people that's replied and say I'm interested in learning more, and I'm like, all right, sweet. So that became like the first list, and so I'm like, well, let's schedule a demo. I'm gonna show you what it is, and then see how this goes. And so for the
did you
first
have it built yet? So did you have SEOJet built? You had built it for
not when
yourself
I initially
essentially, right?
when I was building it, when I first sent out the email, I wanted to gauge again, this was kind of like a product launch thing where I wanted to get them excited. So I was just kind of teasing them along the way. And then once it was
What
ready to actually
were you
sell,
still running the clients? So were you still running Marcus Lemonis's companies as a service? Like, were you still running an agency model too while you're building this product? So you had the safety of the cash flow coming in from somewhere else. And then you also had the need of servicing that cash flow to do it a little bit better, maybe a little bit of time and a bit of quality. And then you captured this additional audience and interest. And then you validated the fact, let's productize this and invest in it.
that's
And
right.
then did you build it out yourself, or did you go and invest with a team to build? Because I mean, vibe coding wasn't a thing then.
No, no, yeah, I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer at all. I had a relationship with another developer and just said, hey, here's what I want. I designed it. I said, here's what it needs to look like. Here's what it needs to do. And so then they just went and built it for me.
What was that investment?
I don't know, 'cause it was such a long period of time, you know what I mean? Like, you're doing this over many months, so, he would just bill me every now and again. So I frankly have no idea how much it cost me, but, it wasn't free. I know that.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you're making a qualified investment into demand that you've already qualified. So
Yeah,
you already have it. You know that this is a thing that we should see into fruition. You invested. You made it. You're non-technical, so you actually went in and allocated the resources to be able to
yeah,
create it, to manufacture it, and then you rolled it out, and it became a business.
that's
And then
right.
this business you continue to scale. Was it the same mechanism? So the thing that got you to launch, was that just the same continual mechanism to get you to a couple of hundred customers?
No, well, yes, like, I think for the first 100, I did, like, I think 100 demos with that first group, and probably closed, I don't know, 40 to 50% of them. So, like, I'm like,
High
"Okay."
conviction.
Yeah, yeah, no. So I'm like, okay, this has legs, man. This is a need. I knew it was, but it was validated at that point. And then I just, started the normal because that audience ran out eventually. Like it wasn't infinite. So I started just kind of the normal marketing route, right? Doing it. SEO became very important for me, right? Because if I'm going to sit here and say this is the way to build links and it's amazing, then I should have good rankings to prove it, right? So I really focused on SEO for the most part. I wrote an article for one of the big SEO publications, just kind of like presenting my research to the public for the first time, and which really kind of that really helped a lot, right? Like
Essentially a highly credible research report.
exactly, I was able to use that. You know what I mean? Like, look, I've been published here. That all this is legit. You know what I mean? Like it was just a one of the better decisions I made to just be to really reach out to that publication. I can't remember which one it was. It's one of the big ones that I'm sure everyone's heard of. But anyways, yeah, that really helped both build because it gave me amazing link juice just from them and from all the people that copy those articles and publish them out there. And then just the traffic I got from it as well, right? Because people are like, what is this? I want to know more about it. So that was really good. And then uh,
Between 2017 and 2021, at any moment in time at all, if ever, and then if so, when, did the business SEO Jet feel like a full-time company? Like, were you ever at the point where this was the thing and this was the main focus and the thing that the agency that you were doing on the side shift perspective to this now being the focus? I'm building this as a business? Or did that
Yeah,
never happen? Or that's an interesting concept for many folks out there.
no, yeah, it did happen pretty quickly. Having already had done this many times, I kind of knew what to expect, you know what I mean? And I also knew like, all right, look, and this is something that anyone that's going to try this needs to understand is that like you can build a business on the side, but you are going to commit as if it's a full-time thing. You know what I mean? Like you still take care of your business over here, your main thing, but you're going to have to basically give that same effort over here to build this. You know, it's like, it's very difficult to just kind of go half in. But I mean,
Yeah.
even though
We
you shouldn't just give up the security of your paycheck before you jump ship, like I wouldn't do that. But you just know that you're going to be consumed all the free time you have. I had a bunch of kids and a family at this point, so you know, it became. I probably made the transition quicker than most people should, but I knew that I could do it. Right? I had the confidence in kind of making that switch earlier than I should have, just because I had been through it so many times. It was fine.
mhm.
But yeah, so I
We
did.
That's important though. I think we should call it out because, very important concept for a lot of folks out there building. We call it investpreneurship. You are your first investor. We tried to break down exits into 5 exits of ownership. Exit 1 is exit your day job, make your business your job, and then you're progressively going through the exits until you finally sell. How you eat a cake one bite at a time. And what you just said is essentially have that day job and have the security, and then at some point be able to get exit 1 ready. When we look at why businesses are 50% are failing in the first 5 years. Only 1/3 make it 10. That means 2/3 don't. And when we look at the 5 top reasons, number 1 is cash flow. Number 2 is demand in market. And essentially, our thesis is that demand in market is because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there not doing what you did. So we're listening to a 7%er right now of an exited founder who went through the journey. And what you did was you sold it. You sold it, you validated it, you sold it, then you made it, and then you exit it. Sell it, make it, exit it, which is also what we promote for Exit One Founders SME framework. Become the SME, but sell it, make it, exit it to a certain extent. And you quite literally did that thing, and then it became the full time thing. At what moment in time did it shift to this is a full time thing? Let me consider maybe selling it again, like getting to an exit again, because this wasn't your first bite at the apple. Did you have the mindset of like, I'm going to sell this, or did somebody come to you? Like, what sparked the interest in the exit?
Oh well, having had sold already probably 10 different internet businesses at that point, I always was thinking about selling. You know, I would think about selling before I started. Again,
Interesting.
I get bored pretty easily with
Do
some.
you build a business to sell at this stage? So like now that you've done it enough, do you kind of come in knowing like that is the thing and I can create an asset that can be sold?
Yeah, 100%. If I didn't love filmmaking so much, I might be like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life because I do really enjoy the
Amazing.
process. But knowing that, like, always in the back of my mind, there's this itch of like, you're not making a movie right now. What are you doing with your life? Type of a thing. It's like, okay, well, let's just build this to sell it, and then I can have some time to go do this again. So
And it took you 4 years, which is probably, 4 years being, probably realistically 3 and probably 2 to get to the point where you're like, I'm going to get this thing exit ready and turn this off for some profit. So that's tight. And that's great execution. That's amazing execution.
yeah, well, there's another piece of this that we haven't talked about. Well, there's a few other. I mean, obviously, it's a long story, and you've got these mountains and valleys. But I can tell you that there was a point where I wanted to sell it because I couldn't stand it, and I hated it, and I was like, I was just going to sell it for as much as I could get for it, and then, but I didn't. And then
What got you out of that mindset for maybe some folks listening that are there right
well,
now?
I'll just tell you. Let me explain a couple things first. First of all, there was a second part of this business that I came up with about, and this is when it became like, okay, this is a real business now, which was the software like gives these maps of like, hey, here's all the backlinks you need to build, and here's exactly the anchor text you should use for this page to rank well, right? That's what the software does. And so I'm telling all these SEO people out there, like, hey, here's all the links you should get, and here's the anchor text you should use, here's the map, and then they had to go find a place to get those links. And I'm like, this is stupid. I just need to partner with 2 really good SEO firms or link building firms and just sell the links right inside my platform and just upcharge them, or just like cut a deal with these link firms so I get a discount so that I'm taking a 20% cut. And so that's what I did. I found like the 2 that I trusted the most. It started just like, I just put the transaction happen inside of SEOJet, where now I'm the link broker, right? And that's when like the business just started really screaming, because it was like I made it so easy for people to buy links, the right link,
Yeah.
that everyone started doing it. And
Yeah.
so,
It's
I had the money.
frictionless. So you're finding you created demand and then you made access to that frictionless
Yeah. I mean, just literally the
without
one
any
click.
supply side constraint because it's
Exactly.
being serviced through somebody else.
Because I
Great
already had
people.
all their payment information. So it was like, they didn't have, all they had to do was click buy. Right. And it
Mhm.
would just process their payment, and they would have a link that would come 2 weeks later. So you have these SEO agencies that are buying links for their clients anyways, right? So then I just made it like the place to come do it. They get it, and excuse me, if they paid a higher subscription percent or price, they would get a bigger discount on the links. Oh, and I did that on purpose because I knew that the value in the business was the MRR, right? And so I'm like, I can get higher MRR by giving more discounts on these links from
Because the
from the same,
retention to use it's there.
because they're like, oh, because I would literally like email these clients, be like, hey, if you switch to this MRR, you would have saved $1,800 this month on link purchases. You know what I mean? Like I would just lay it out for them. Like, here's how much you'll save if you pay more monthly. And so I get them all to switch to the higher monthly payments, knowing that in terms of like just preparing for the exit, knowing that that was the thing that was going to bring the value of the business up. Because one thing I figured out really quickly, and this was I had already sold 2 different SaaS businesses, is that what investors care about is predictable revenue. And so the more MRR you have, the more value that business has in terms of,
Defensibility on capital, because as a buyer, you're typically taking on debt to service to actually complete the transaction. So you want defensibility on paying that back. And then as a capital allocator, you're giving capital to that business. You want to have defensibility on getting repaid. So there's always a why behind it, and the market typically speaks it. So a
that's
thousand
right.
percent in
Yeah.
terms of that. The fact that you knew that and then built into it is beyond clever. I'm curious if you use that as the core strategy to identify what to do. So like you were lost and you were feeling like a little bit of pressure of maybe should I get rid of this? You were almost getting disenfranchised with owning of the business, which we all go through these cycles,
Well,
ebbs
this
and
one was a
flows.
very specific thing, because what happened was I had the business set up, and I had just copied somebody else that I knew was very successful. That this founder, she had started this other non-competing SaaS business, but what she did was she didn't let people sign up on her site. Is like you have to request an invitation. Like you had to literally put in your email to request an invitation on the homepage to get an invite to sign up for the software. And I was like, and they were super successful. And I was like, I'm going to try that. So that's how I ran SEOJet for a really long time.
They were charging more, or they were trying to upsell into an agency model, or
No,
why
they
did
would
they do
just,
that?
they would just not let you sign up for their software without putting your email first as an invitation. And then an automatic email would get sent 12 minutes later saying, you've been approved. Here's the link to sign up.
Oh, they were
It was
just
just,
trying to harvest the email.
yeah, it's just a way to create fake scarcity. Right. And so I was like, I'm going to try that out because that seems cool. And so I did that, and it seemed to be working, but then all of a sudden, like, signups just stopped, and I was like,
Created
this
too
is,
much friction.
well, I don't know like, I just assumed that people didn't like my software. Growth stagnated. It started to shrink a little bit. I'm like, I guess this software is terrible. It never dawned on me to go check to see, to make sure that people were still getting the invite. Well, turns out that
Yeah,
that
spammed.
little sequence got flagged as spam. I
Mm.
think one of my competitors, just like just like created a bot to put in like 5,000 emails that would all be like, who the heck is this? And they mark me as spam.
Mhm.
And so then no one was getting the invite to actually sign up. So I had, over a 6-month period, I had 6,000 people put their email in to get an invite to sign up for SEOJet, and none of them got the invite because it was filtered out as spam.
Mhm.
And so obviously that's when I realized, oh, that's why my business is dying, because no one can sign up. There was, if they
You're
were
not
on the
alone in
email.
that problem. I've heard a number of folks, SaaSes that lead with community, for example, that oftentimes happening and then it tanking the MRR and then not figuring it out until it's a
Yeah,
couple
because
months later.
when that's the downside of being a solo founder, is I was doing everything and I didn't really have time to look into it until I finally was like, well, this is desperation mode.
Or even the metrics to be able to have an indicator, a red flag, let me dive deep.
Yeah, exactly. So once I figured that out, obviously I just undid that whole thing. I said, just make it, you sign up, start a trial, right? And so that that kind of started moving it in the right direction, at least.
Did you know who your buyer was gonna be? Like, how did you get to the point of, "We're gonna transition to an exit,"
Yeah, that's a
and
great
how did you
question.
get truly exit ready with it with interest?
So, okay, so I had at that point I had 3 link building firms that I was partnering with, right?
Gotcha.
Now, so the 3 of them were splitting all of the link revenue that was coming from my SEO jet because I would just
Round
split it
robin it.
randomly, just between the 3, so I was never relying on one person.
That's a clever model.
And so then I was like, oh yeah, and by the way, one of those 3 bought that guest posting app I had built from me. So I had already worked with them. They had already paid me. It was a small 6-figure deal, but it was, help finance SEO Jet. So it was good. So I had already had a deal with them. I already trusted them, knew they were good for it. And so I went to them when things got bad. I was like, "Hey, do you want to buy this thing?" And he's like, "I don't know." But then he became a link partner because they had a link building service. He was one of the 3. And now he can see like how much money we're booking from his service every month. And he's like, well, if I multiply that by 3, I could add all of that if I owned SEO Jet, right?
Underwrite the deal, yeah.
It's a massive win for him. So I knew that to one of those 3 guys, the SEO Jet would be more valuable than to anyone else, right? Because they're going to take a massive increase in link revenue if they own SEO Jet, because they get to then do all the link service. So I reached out to them first, and I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling this thing. You know, any interest?" And that's kind of how the conversation started. And I frankly just kind of let them bid against each other a little bit.
You did. So you created a process. You manufactured your own process, which is amazing and remarkable. And for the audience listening, many times some folks will get the exit seated in their brain because somebody reaches out and it's like they never thought about selling. Then all of a sudden, like, oh, I'll buy you or whatever. And it starts that. And that typically takes them to left field. And they'll go down these conversations with unqualified buyers. And then there's only one of them and they never have a process going. You created and manufactured a process which is amazingly remarkable, and then on top of that, you did it with the folks that were actually using the like integrated into your channel.
Yeah. So
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 the
they so
value was there.
I did not have to explain the value or why the software was good because
That's so smart.
you could
That's
just
so
look at the
good.
monthly revenue that I was providing for them and go, oh yeah, if we could triple this just by owning SEO Jet plus take the MRR, like this is a no brainer.
I'm in love with that just from a concept of manufacturing an exit. I think like just it's almost like in my mind, mental model post this conversation is how can you identify this type of strategy into other areas that could be applied? It's like how do you build a mousetrap and then integrate the potential exit partners into it,
Yeah.
create value for them, and then just manufacture an exit in 2 years. I think that that's super smart. That's so good. That's great. And then you executed it. Did you find the competition? Did you actually drive up? Like, how was the actual dynamic of closing the process?
Well, I just reached out to the 2. There was one that I was like, these guys probably aren't going to do it because I think they were a smaller firm, and I didn't really know them enough to trust them to. But the other 2, I had a pretty good relationship with both of them, and so I'm like, look, there was one that I wanted to sell to that I would rather sell to because they were the best of the 3 services. I'm like, you guys, I want to sell to you. You guys have a better service. I think that in your hands, this thing would be best fit, but obviously I have to make the smartest decision for me. I'm not going to take a cut because I want you to have this. And then so I kind of let them, but I said, but I am going to go to these other guys and I am going to offer them as well. So you just let me know. Right. And I said that to both people. Well, the other people, I said, hey, I'm also offering this to someone else. I didn't tell them that I prefer that they owned it because that wasn't true. I just said, hey, but that was the one I'd already done a deal with, the second one.
Yeah,
So,
there's
so
trust built into the
yeah,
buy.
there was trust built. And so I'm like, I got these other guys. Ironically, later on, they ended up buying this guy. This company ended up buying that company. Now they kind of own.
Really?
Yeah, I actually kind of made the intro, I think, on that one, but
You seeded a platform.
yeah, I did. Anyway, yeah. So that was that. But that's kind of how I did it, and then we just kind of talking about it. And at first, it wasn't because I had just kind of gotten over this whole thing of 6 months of no one signing. Well, not, very few people, because people could still sign up if they went through the follow up sequence in my emails because they get the links in there. But if you just came to the website, that's when they were getting stuck. And so once I fixed that, things started to fix themselves a little bit. But at that point, I was so disenchanted with that whole experience. That's when I reached out to them in the first place, and the offers were going to be low, right? Like less than probably less than half of what I ended up getting, like way low.
Let's just talk multiples. What was the original multiple that you were aiming for? What did you end up getting? What did you think you would get when we're saying low?
Well, I don't even know what the multiple was, but I can tell you that the offer was like, I don't know, 300-400 grand or something. Like that's like when things weren't
What
great.
were you doing in terms of revenue and profit?
Man, this is such good questions. If it wasn't like
And
20
like
years ago,
profit, we could just say bottom line, or we could say SDE, or
well, it was always very difficult because of the link orders. Like that made it because everyone had to make was making a different percentage. I
Mhm.
was making a different percentage on every single client depending on where they were. They were getting different discounts, so it was always
Well,
hard to
let's just
know.
say if it's a couple, if it was 300,000. I mean, you ultimately exited for low sevens, right? It's low
Hmm.
7 figures.
Yeah,
So this lift of fixing the 6 month problem got you significant lift in terms of revenue
yeah.
gap,
Well,
or how did you get,
well.
how did you manufacture that shift in multiple?
So it wasn't that. What I did was I was like, okay, I can't count on SEO for growth because SEO is very inconsistent, right? And I'm like, I need another channel. I have to have another channel. I need someone that knows Facebook ads. And so I was like, I need to find someone who's really good at Facebook ads and just have them teach me how to do it.
Mm.
And it just so happens that founder I know, the guy that founded was the founder of a little widget that's like, hey, Bob Johnson just purchased this. What was that called? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm doing this. I'm thinking about doing this Facebook consulting thing because like Facebook ads because I know a lot of founders don't know how to do Facebook ads. Would you be interested?" I'm like, yeah, I'd be interested." He's like, "All right, it'll be 10 grand for me to teach you for a couple weeks." And at that point, I was like, "Well, crap, I don't got 10 grand." I'm like, "Well, I can do $6,000. That's the best I can do. That's gonna all go on a credit card." He's like, "Okay." And so I literally maxed out my credit card to have this guy teach me Facebook ads because I knew that was the thing that was going to change. Like I just knew that was the thing I needed to do to make this business have consistent growth. And by the way, this was right during COVID where people stopped advertising. And I was like, this is the time, man. This is the perfect time to do this because there's not as many people advertising. It'll be cheaper for me. And, I feel like this will be how I differentiate myself. And so that's what I did. And also, because I had my filmmaking background, I went and filmed two really funny commercials that I wrote about SEOJet. And you can find them. They're still out there and you can look them up on YouTube and they're pretty funny.
Yeah, mix the passion with the new pursuit, and
Exactly.
you drove another acquisition channel. So you did growth through acquisition to be able to scale, and then you scaled it and you grew the money's multiple, which then
That's
allows you
right.
to get to the low 7 figures for the exit.
Yeah. Cause I think when things were going bad, I think I was probably at like 7 or 8 thousand MRR or something like that. And and then I was like, all right, but that's not including the link sales. So there was obviously another side of revenue besides the MRR. But again, MRR was the thing that was really important to me. And so then
This
once
is
I
an interesting deal, and I don't know if you'd be open to it because I know we're coming up on time, but doing a case study, like I feel like breaking this deal down, like literally taking this pod and breaking it down as a case study episode or case study deal breakdown, because you went through such a life cycle of this deal. I'm hearing now like the low side of it and then the ability to come back and ramp. It's amazing. Like honestly, there's so many mechanisms at play inside of this one opportunity, this one deal. I feel like there's a lot of levers in which you pulled that probably a deep dive into would be valuable for a lot of folks.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
if you'd be
probably would.
interested in that.
There was I made a lot of good guesses and made some
Simple
smart
bets.
decisions. That Facebook one was like, it was like, I'm like, dude, if this doesn't work, I'm in big trouble. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, you let it you put some risk on it. I mean, not a huge amount of risk, probably outsized in terms of downside to reward on the upside, which panned out. I think it's super cool that I'd be curious about the mental model in terms of how you made that decision to do it. I don't know if it came from a place of desperation or a place of certainty and aspiration, or whether like you saw it and you knew it, or if you felt like I have to do something about it.
yeah, it just felt like one of those moments where that you always would hear about, where it's like this really smart person did the opposite of everyone else and became super successful because of it. You know what I mean? And so, and you hear about in the stock market all the time when everyone's panicking, you should
Contrarian
be
thinking,
buying, right?
yeah. You're like, nobody's buying on ads, so it's an opportunity to go into this.
Yeah, and so
You
that's when I
literally were a contrarian to the market.
and I knew that, and I had wanted to do it for such a long time, but didn't know who to go to. But I knew this guy personally, and knew that he was very smart and successful at it. So I was like, all right, this is the chance. And then
Was
like
it
literally,
Heyo?
what's that?
Heyo? Was that the widget?
No, it was I
We don't
forget.
have to. I was just curious. Yeah. No, that's super cool. I mean, I know that that market's also, there's been a lot of acquisitions and a lot of consolidation. And it's like a very transferable market for sure in terms of deals getting done as well. A very
Yeah.
small space. I love the fact that we're tied to that. And then in terms of like transitioning post exit, so we got the deal done. How did you feel after doing this deal? And then what did you do next?
Well, it was kind of a mixed feeling because I was literally at the hotel at a funeral for a friend of mine who had passed away, as I'm on the call with these guys closing this deal. So it was like this weird mixed feeling of I'm in a sad place, but I just, was able to negotiate this buyout this exit of a, and like the negotiations went really strong in my favor. It was like awesome. So it was
How
just
did you structure? Did you structure it all cash? Did you structure it as an earnout? What,
they wanted to structure it as, I think it was 1 million up front and then just the rest of it paid over a couple of years. They
based on
ended up
performance of it on the backside or guaranteed?
they ended up just like a few months later just saying, we're just going to pay you the rest right now. And I was like, that's fine. I kind of liked not getting all of it right away, Dill, because it would stop me from spending it all. But anyway, yeah, that's how it was.
Did
That's
they
how it was.
clear you out because this other deal was going through?
I
Because
don't
they
know
ended
why
up
they
getting
did.
acquired?
No, I don't know why they did. And I frankly didn't care that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, the fact that you were able to grab grab the bag to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like the upfront is amazing, especially in this space. There's a lot of risk. So a lot of people put terms to structure that risk out. And then the fact that you were able to pull it forward and get it. A lot of folks on the exit side, we hear about the initial numbers, but they don't end up panning out on the back end. So like, that's awesome. Like it is
Yeah.
quite literally, yeah, like a full great case study journey of a of a deal, of a really good deal manufactured and done. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's good. I mean, the Facebook ads really made the difference. Like once I started running those, they were super profitable, and the growth, like basically the business size growth doubled in like 3 or 4 months. Like it was that good. And that's when I'm like, all right, I know this works. Now's the time. I had already wanted to sell it anyways, so let's just do this.
I know that post acquisition, post exit, you went through this journey of moment in time, which we all do, and it's almost like a realization. I mean, you did the first time of going and doing the short films in a sense. You had the second time where you got the opportunity, the freedom opened up to decide what to do next. I feel like there's a good story there. I know we're also coming up on time for this pod. I'm curious if you'd be willing to break this down into a two-part series and we get it into a get to the exit, which we just did. And then if there's any post-exit insights that I feel like you could share with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. So I was smarter this time in that I didn't wait for, like, I actually was filming my second movie right 6 months before I exited this one. So I didn't wait. Well, the biggest lesson I learned, and this is a different lesson, but the biggest lesson I learned from the first movie to the second was use your own money to make a movie. And it wasn't all my own money the first time, but it was a lot. And this time I was like, all right, I know enough and am comfortable enough with that industry to get investors on the next film. So that was, as I was selling SEO Jet, I was in post production on that second movie, and that was where I was spending the vast majority of my time, because you just have all these things you have to do to get ready for the release of a movie. Again, which had a small theatrical release, and then now it's on all the platforms. But anyways, so that's, I mean, I'm just going back to my first love, right? Like it just allowed me to have the time to do that. But in the meantime, I was like, well, I need to have something to replace SEO Jet when I sell it. And so I founded a SaaS business that I thought was a good complement to SEO Jet.
Mm-hmm.
It was on one of the big marketplace where all the SaaS businesses are for sale. And I said, all right, this one looks like a good one. I'm going to try to buy it. I literally closed on that deal 2 weeks before I started filming my movie, which was terrible timing. But you just don't, when you're buying a business, you never know when that SMB loan is going to close, right? It's just like,
Mhm.
it could take 6
So
months.
you
It could
went
take,
through post exit. You looked at an acquisition, and you exited, and then you looked at this and you said, "Let me maybe be on the other side of the table."
no, I wasn't even, well, I knew I was going to exit SEOJet. It was happening, but I didn't, but I started that process before the exit, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months before the exit is when I started. I first looked at it as, hey, this could be a strategic, like this aligns pretty well with what SEOJet does. I could run both of these together. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, how about I just run this new one while I exit SEOJet? And that's kind of how the shift went.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like the beginning. Every ending has a new beginning, and that sounds like the beginning of what would be a very phenomenal next episode of Exited, where we get into post-exit acquisition, other side of the table, and also what you're working on today, which is Prosperly, which
Yeah.
is quite literally you got back into it. So Adam, getting into the end of this episode, wrapping it up. For folks that are listening, they're here at the end. We are gonna there's a tale to be told. So we're gonna jump into the next story in this journey, which is what you're working on today. But for folks that are listening, if they want to reach out before we're able to push that one out, what would be the best place for them to find you?
You can find me on like Twitter. Real Adam White is my handle on Twitter. I have my, it's the same handle on Instagram, but that's like, Instagram's all filmmaking stuff. Twitter's more stuff that they can reach out to me there for sure. Yeah.
And then Prosperly.
Yeah, Prosperly.com. Prosperly, it's a SaaS business that it basically helps small businesses that have like a local presence collect Google reviews from their customers. So it's just like a system that makes it so like they can just scale up their review collection from their customers instead of just hoping that they get reviews.
Which next episode we'll jump into the story from acquisition, post exit, moment in time, acquisition, everything from there to today, so we can continue the journey. All right, Adam, I appreciate you joining us today for this episode. Amazing deal in terms of a case study too.
Thank
One of
you.
the stories in which hopefully we get to tell and share a number for folks that are living it today. Live lessons learned, the most valuable lessons that you could ever pick up. Right? Those are ones that you only can get in a selective source. Appreciate you for joining us. Trust the process, commit to the journey. Till next time.
Thank you.